And now it's time for a Geek Speak with
GK Technologies,
Sarah and
Jody.
In the fields again. I just can't wait to get in the fields again. The life I love is spreading potash for my friends. And I can't wait to get in the fields again. No, I can't wait to get in the fields again.
Hello, at Geek Speak listeners. We have a very special episode for all of you today.
We can't wait. We are going to be hanging out with a bunch of misfits who think that soil sampling is fun. Namely, of course, Jody and I, we're geeks. And then along with Kyle Okke, Jason Hanson, and Lane Bothwell. We all went out to Montana in August and went soil sampling just because it's fun.
And to test out the GK Field Mapper app, yes, soil sampling is fun. And it's especially fun when you get to do it with other people that think soil sampling is fun.
And the app worked beautifully. We were all logged into the same account and all of the points were coming across so well. It was so much fun. People have asked me, why did you want to go soil sampling in Montana? Well, I had never been to Montana soil sampling. I had never touched Montana soils before. So that was my first chance to do that. It was very fun. And then, of course, we just kind of all hang out, and it was kind of like going to, hunter's camp, except it was soil sample camp.
I thought you were going to say it was going to be like going to Disney World for a second.
I was hanging out in the Blue Beacon. That's kind of a fun ride.
That is a fun ride. It's even decorated like a ride at Disney World too, which you'll find more about.
I did not decorate it. You crazy people decorated it. You'll find out more. Highly suggest listening. It was a blast.
The super fun part about soil sampling with other people, at least in my experience, I've always soil sampled alone. And sometimes you just kind of do what you do because that's what's in your setup. But when you get to soil sample with other people, you get to see how their pickups are set up, how they organize their probes, what kind of tips they like in different situations. It's really, really fun to not only hang out with fun people, but get some really good tips to make soil sampling easier, make it more enjoyable, and just be more efficient out in the field. And so there's a lot of shenanigans on this episode, but there's also a lot of really applicable and actionable tips for any of you soil samplers out there or anybody that's interested in doing a little bit more precision soil work on their own farm.
And if you have ever been a skeptic that soil sampling can't be fun, well, listen up. Yes, it can be fun.
It can be fun. I do want to give a special thank you to Agronomist Happy Hour, Jason Hanson and Kyle Okke for setting this up, doing the recording. You may have heard it on their podcast feed if you do follow them. If you don't follow them, do give them a follow and listen to their podcast as well. But thank you so much for letting us play this in our feed as well. I think you guys will really enjoy this.
And a big thank you to Kyle Okke for inviting us out to Montana in the first place. We were soil sampling on his client's land. Clients out there are amazing. It was so much fun to go and learn a little bit more about his business and, of course, all the other guys that were out there.
Sit back, take a listen, and enjoy.
So this feels like deja vu, except I don't think we were all virtual here the last time. We were all in person. It was only like a week ago.
Hold on a second. Now it's deja vu.
Well, when someone has a case of the Mondays. Quite literally, Jason holds up a case of beer before we hit record, and he goes, "Look, it's a case of the Mondays." From, I don't know, what was the brewing company's name?
Oh, it's irrelevant. No, it's Monday Night Brewing.
Yeah, there we go. So a case of the Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's a 12-pack of just straight IPAs. What bad could
Somehow
happen?
Not surprised. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
We'll find
Give
out.
us an hour.
No, but we've got kind of a collaborative episode now. The only odd guy out, but he still belongs on the podcast, is Lane. Lane Bothwell. So
Odd guy out. He is the odd guy.
What?
well, think we're talking to fellow podcasters now. So I feel like we're going to use this episode as kind of a, you guys will put it out on Geek Speak with Sarah Lovis and Jody Bowe. And then we'll put out this on Happy Hour. And then you got Lane, who's probably drinking the best beer out of them all.
I got a couple on deck here, so yeah.
We got to have Lane on here. We're just not going to have the content for either one of our podcasts to make this
Yeah.
work. I mean, that's just how that works.
It's
The
Or-
glue. He's the
Or
glue.
naturally, Lane, is this a podcast announcement? Do you have a podcast that we should know about that you've started?
No, I will be a guest. I am not starting a podcast. Thanks for bringing it up, though.
So this is what we have formally named the Montana Mafia, the group of the five of us on the podcast right now. So myself, Jason, Sarah Lovis, Jody Bowe, Lane Bothwell, all of you, we've talked before on the podcast, on each other's podcasts in some capacity or one or another. And Lane and I did this little trip out to Montana. And I remember how the whole thing started. I don't remember like when it was necessarily, but you were like reminiscing of this, like, oh, these custom combiners travel, the kind of western part of the country or the western part of South Dakota. And he's like, I've heard of consultants that go West River and go do custom sampling while they don't have crops up. And he's like, that'd be cool to go do. And I'm like, are you serious when you're saying that'd be cool to go do? Because, yeah, I might have something for you. And then he took me serious. He's like, yeah, I'd totally go to Montana with you. And so we did this together for a portion of it last year. And then I realized like how much work it really was. And then it was kind of a deal where it's like, that was so much fun. Let's do it again. It's like, we could totally invite a bunch of people to come and do this. And so that's kind of how it kind of grew legs, so to speak. And not just getting any extra people to come help, but like actually like real soil nerds, real agronomy people that like take their job seriously. A lot of fun. And so I had the group of us come and help me out with some of my soil sampling work out in Montana, kind of like north of the Glendive area. So not terribly far into Montana, but it was quite the experience. That was a fun way to do it.
It was one thing I will say right off the bat is I don't know how you did it, but you picked like the perfect week temperature wise.
No kidding.
There was a little wind, but we did not roast because I think Lane can attest to this. When Lane was out there just with you, it was a totally different situation.
It was like this week right now for me. It was like 95 degrees today. It was hot.
Ooh.
It was,
And it was like 85 degrees in my soil sampling pickup.
yeah, it was hot and it was still windy. It was brutal. But yeah, we did nail it. It was very comfortable. Even if you didn't have AC, you didn't quite, shrivel up like a raisin anyway. It was pretty good.
It was a good week.
It was the best week to have the Blue Beacon out west.
So let's start with that. Now, soil sampling pickups aren't really known to be like the most mechanically sound or aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, but I mean, aesthetically pleasing. Not, and apparently it gets worse when you go soil sampling with you guys.
Well, we'll get to things that have happened to the soil sampling trucks, but I just want to point out the fact that what year is that Dodge pickup of yours?
I thought it was in 1996, but it's actually in 1999. So I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty high wage there.
Hopefully nobody chastises me for this, but I thought Dodges in like that like 97, 98 to like early 2000s were like kind of known to be like in their lemon age. because my dad had a 1998 3/4 ton pickup, and this is probably why, like, no relation to why I've named my one black pickup the Black Pearl, but he called it the Black Pearl. Now, subconsciously, that's probably why I named it that, because that 1998 Dodge 3/4 ton just constantly was at the mechanic. One problem after the next problem after the next problem. And so your truck seemed like it was just fine. But to go from Hillsboro, North Dakota, all the way to Glendive, that's a trip.
So I'm actually working on getting this stuff fixed so that I have a couple more amenities for the next trip. Like, for example, the seatbelt doesn't exactly work. So don't tell the cops, but the seatbelt doesn't exactly work. And, but it's such a stellar vehicle for soil sampling that somebody actually wants to rent it coming up here. And they said, well, what's it going to cost? And I said, well, I got a great idea. How about if you just fix the seatbelt and change the oil and we'll call it square and make sure it comes back with a full tank of gas. So that's what we're going to do. And so I will actually have a seatbelt the next time that I go out there. But I mean, it's a 1999 Dodge pickup. It drinks a little bit of oil. She's got about 88,000 miles on it now. So you just kind of got to make sure you've got the oil with you. But otherwise, I mean, it's pretty good.
No catalytic converter. I just want to point that out. So it's pretty throaty when you start it and get.
You kind of have to make sure you've got enough ventilation in the cab because of that. Because it does. I do think that I should change where the exhaust is going, but yeah. So there's no catalytic converter. But I also don't catch on fire anymore. I was on fire a couple times, so I kind of got sick of that. So I got rid of the catalytic converter. Also, nobody tell the cops about that one because I don't want to get thrown in jail. But anyway, so that's kind of that story. But it's a great vehicle. Otherwise, I mean, I made it all the way out there. The air conditioning does leave a little to be desired. Lane did actually get a chance to experience the wonders of the Blue Beacon, so he can attest to that. I'm wondering, do you guys think that I would stand a chance if I actually tried to recharge the AC in that thing? Do you think I should even try it?
If you've never tried it, should have said something. I totally have like one of those R91 or 134 charging cans. Like, it's the easiest thing to recharge.
Really?
Yeah. There's nothing to it.
Maybe I should add that to my rental agreement.
Yes, you should, because it wouldn't cost him that much to get a can of that and just say, just recharge my air conditioning.
Well, we were surprised you showed up because going down the interstate with a Tupperware container on the top of that vehicle draws a lot of attention, and apparently
it's not a Tupperware container. It's a Rubbermaid container.
It looks like it from the average person. Let me
tell you,
it's a
Rubbermaid container.
Okay, Rubbermaid. But isn't it that you stopped somewhere and somebody was like wanted to buy that vehicle on your way out there?
Yeah, I mean it was. So I stopped in Jamestown because they have a nice little gas station there. Which, if you get off the interstate, they also have a nice bottle shop right by the gas station in case you need to pick up some amenities. And so that's what I did. But yeah, I was walking out and they were like, "Hey, I want to buy that truck," and I'm like, "Sorry, it's not for sale."
I'm going on an adventure, and you cannot buy this from me right now.
Or ever. But yeah, so it does have a Rubbermaid container on the top, and you might be wondering why. And honestly, I'm the only one in this group that has a Rubbermaid container on the top, and it's because in my backyard we have sugar beets here, and so when you soil sample for sugar beets, you need to pull 4-foot samples. So you need to have you need to use longer probes, obviously 4-foot probes, so you can get a full 4-foot sample. And so in order to make that work with the cylinder, I had to cut a hole in the ceiling and then put the cylinder out the top. Well, in order to cover that up, so I don't have to experience rainfall inside, because I got that going for it. I don't have to experience that. It wears a Rubbermaid container on the top. Lane, stop laughing.
So
I can't.
I want to know is
explain how
cutting.
It's awesome.
Is cutting a hole in the roof like a common thing in the valley?
Like it should be on the. It should be like on a t-shirt. It's kind of the soil sampling image of a soil sampling pickup image that you have in your head, really. Yeah.
Lane, I heard you want to get into soil sampling 4-footers.
Well, no, I don't. You're wrong. I kind of inherently have to do them, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll poke some 4-footers here coming up. We got some guys chopping silage, and we're in a high water table, and with silage comes typically lots of manure in our area. So I'll do some 4-footers for some manure management deal. But if you don't have to do 4-footers, I would not recommend anybody looking to get into them.
Absolutely.
No, don't do
I
it.
agree with you. It's not fun.
I find it interesting. You talk to manure management, and probably nobody has an answer within our group here, but you know who has a lot of cattle confinements and dairies as you move like east? Wisconsin and Illinois, Iowa. But a lot of people that soil sample there, you hand probe. So do different states have different regulations on depths of nitrate samples you pull and all that?
Yeah.
Very likely.
Minnesota's nutrient management plan is different than North Dakota's, is different than South Dakota's. North Dakota's is patterning theirs after South Dakota's.
Okay.
So
the one thing I've always, go ahead.
Footers.
The one thing I've always wondered about Iowa, so I was recently at the Iowa Drainage School down in Nashua, Iowa, where in Iowa, drainage is very different, right? Because they work in drainage districts and they connect to mains that have been put in 100 years ago for like a whole water district. But I wonder if part of the concern about doing 4-foot samples is the risk of hitting tile lines. Yeah. I never really thought about it until I went down there, but I think that's probably a lot more common if you're going 4-foot there versus up here. It's not out of the question up here either, but not as common.
It's almost something you need to have the GIS file of where your tile lines are, so you're not actually going right over top of it with a 4-foot probe.
Yeah.
Just another new thing to avoid while you're out sampling.
So if you don't have a map for that already, get a map for that.
And if you need an app for that, we could totally put that map for that on that app for that.
And we'll
Absolutely.
talk about that app here in just a second, but I can't let go of the Rubbermaid container. So is it just...
You can. It's okay if you do.
Not yet. I feel like it's still unique because are other people cutting sunroofs in their vehicles to put their probes in to get the hydraulic cylinder in, or is that a unique Sarah thing?
So here's the deal. Lots of 4-footers get pulled right here in my backyard by Hillsborough. I've got a sugar beet plant in town. So pretty much most of the wheat ground that's going to be in this area, or small grain ground, we're going to go and pull it for 4-footers to figure out how much nitrate is deep for sugar beet production. If you've got too much nitrate, you will not have the quality in the sugar beets the following year. So that's why we do it. Okay. Now, when it comes to actually setting up the soil sample pickups, I've got a 1-stage cylinder. So it's a pretty long cylinder in there. It's electric over hydraulic 1-stage cylinder. And when I got that, I bought it from Makevice, and I think, they're still selling it. But prior to that, the ones that I used to use, like at the co-op, they were double-stage cylinders. So then you didn't have to have them sticking out the top quite as far, which helped quite a bit. But I still feel like I've got more room for putting the 4-foot probe on, like when I want to do that. I think honestly, having the hole out the top, even with the single-stage cylinder, it's a little easier for putting the probe on and a couple things like that. It looks a little unique from the road. People either, they really wave at me when I'm going down the road because they know who it is. At least in this neck of the woods. They probably didn't on I-94 out west a little ways, but there's enough that it definitely caught some looks.
They probably thought you were a storm chaser when you got further west.
And actually, yeah, so like speaking of like the 2-cylinder or single stage versus 2-cylinder stage, that's actually like one of the things is the 2-stage cylinder is actually shorter, I think, by like 5 inches than the single stage cylinder. So like if you are concerned about not having enough clearance in your rig or like having to have a hole at the top to fit the single stage cylinder, like you would buy the double stage or the 2-stage cylinder to get more of that clearance. at least with the current ones that Agvi sells.
And that's essentially what you've got, Lane, in your one vehicle that can do 4-footers, right? You have a 2-stage hydraulic cylinder.
We do have a 2-stage cylinder in the unit that I was actually using in Montana. Not because we were doing 4-footers in Montana, but because it just so happens that unit is the most comfortable one that I own, and that's the reason why I took it out there. But I do have a 2-stage.
Okay, now we're gonna talk about more vehicles now. So we're done picking on Sarah.
Before you leave, though, I will say this: if I had the choice of setting up a Dodge pickup, a mid-90s Dodge pickup, for a soil sample rig, I would not do it because of the way that the transmission is underneath chassis. Hey, take it easy. It was the right price on an auction sale, which is why this happens to be a soil sample rig.
Hey, that's why a lot of these are destined to be where they're at, right?
Exactly. But if you could find a Chevy pickup, you're going to be able to have that probe closer to you. I feel like my probe is over quite a ways, and it had to be that way for everything that was going on underneath. So if you're setting up a sample pickup and you can get a chance to find like one of those mid-90s Chevy half tons, man, they are worth their weight in gold. Oh, rock and roll. I wish I was as cool as you.
Oh, I love my mid-90s.
My mid-90 truck, I could put a wet bar and a 2-girl, 1-guy hot tub in that cab.
And have your own reality TV show.
I tell you what, there's so much room in there, it's unbelievable. And that was one of the most interesting things. Was just seeing how everybody has their vehicle set up.
Yes.
And things. And there was some really cool things. And then there was some things that I was like, what the hell? Why would you? You know, it's kind of that way. So.
And this is where we're going to pick on Lane for a little bit. Because the hydraulics still, like, okay, so Lane was the only one out of the group of us with the soil sampling pickups that had a passenger seat, which was really cool because we had your guys' coworker, Travis, your app programmer, from GK Tech. The app programmer, Travis, was there. And he got some real firsthand experience. Well, matter of fact, he was in the driver's seat for a good portion of it too, I believe. And he hopped in the little half back seat and these little extended cab pickups too. And got to check it out, and everyone else's rig too, except for mine. Mine wasn't very accommodating for that. But back to Lane's. Okay, so you got a passenger seat on it, so which means that your probe placement is a lot closer to the driver's seat. And when I mean a lot closer, that son of a bitch is hugging your right hip.
It's in your right pocket.
Yeah, it is there.
Why?
And you got to be dealt.
That's what it comes down to with these vehicles. Like you said, those mid-90s pickups. I mean, most of the vehicles that are set up, not because you had a choice of where, the probe actually sits or is positioned, but is just where it ended up based on what you wanted your pickup to be. So you guys don't have passenger seats. I don't really know why. We use that pickup for a scouting pickup as well. So for whatever reason, we just want to leave the passenger seat in. And we were notified that if you do that, this is the way it's going to be. And it's like, oh, well, now we have a choice to make. Do we want the probe positioned where it's at with the seat in, or do we get another option with the seat out? And it is super uncomfortable, and I don't like it, but it works. And there is a passenger seat, and I'm guessing that any passenger that rides with me is happy that there is a seat there. So,
and you have air conditioning.
I did have air conditioning.
Important feature.
That is a feature I'm not used to. That is the only vehicle with a probe in it that actually has a functioning AC, and I tell you what, I was very spoiled. That is a game changer when it comes to.
And I know you were incentivized to bring that pickup over any other pickup solely for the fact that the year before you were in a pickup Without, well, okay, so what, that 3/4 ton that you brought the year before, what is that, a 6.4?
Or is that? Is that the 6?
It's a bigger.
It's the 6.4, 6.8. It's a 2008 Ford. I think it's the 6.8.
Well, it was funny. I was just talking to another fellow soil sampler, a consultant we all know, Phil Warner, and he runs a 7.3 diesel pickup with the clutch pump and all that, which he likes that part.
Yep.
But he goes, man, you got to pick your days. You can't go soil sample on 90-degree days because the whole damn thing gets hot. And then, like it's like you see the temp on the engine get hot, everything gets warm. And I kind of had to laugh, and I'm like, well, it happens with the 6.4s too, because when Lane was out helping when it was like 95 degrees, he was taking this bent ass probe that he fucked up from earlier in the week, and he was propping up the hood. And he'd park it into the wind and shut it off so that it would cool the whole engine bay down because he was so damn hot.
that wrecked probe I have in the back of that pickup to prop the hood open is probably the second most important thing of that pickup. You got to have that probe to keep the hood up because the hood's up a lot.
Well, if you'd have brought that truck, you'd have cooled that engine down in about 45 seconds on Tuesday. We were out there.
It was like needed a sweatshirt one of those mornings.
Else.
Yeah.
The Blue Beacon would have caught on fire. We'd have burnt half the state down and most of the western part of North Dakota too.
Wow. Get a converter.
Yeah.
No fire for you.
That's what I need to do. Straight pipe mine. Just make it real throaty.
Yeah, if I had
the only downside is like just the noise, right? Like the hard thing driving what I found like long periods of time driving a soil sample pickup, having a hole, even though you can cover it, it's a lot more road noise.
Oh yeah.
No phone calls for me, and it's louder when you've got a hole in the roof too. the rubber main container does not buffer any sounds, so like the whole
I bet it's terrible.
Out. Oh, it's terrible. So the whole ride out to Glendive and the whole ride back, like I couldn't talk on the phone to anybody. It was very peaceful.
You need to get like that Aviator's Bluetooth headset that Jody's. Yep, that thing she's holding up right there.
Oh yeah, that's
Tell
right.
us about that.
This is 50% of the reason that I bought these, but they're like. So my fiance was out mowing the lawn one day and he had these, and I'm like, wow, are you listening to like music in those? Those are fancy. But they're literally like safety headphones to protect your ears, but they also have a microphone attached to it and Bluetooth speakers. So then you can listen to music, podcasts with really loud stuff going, and then also take phone calls too. And actually, like, the microphone does a really good job at picking up sound. So like it is how you can manage in a really loud soil sampling truck or a tractor. I do not have an affiliate link, but I should. But it's an ISO Tunes headset.
Can a person find that on Amazon?
Since Lane is so opposed to the Blue Parrot, he would look way better in those.
I don't know. I just like to abuse myself, and I just stick the phone to my head, and you got to pick your battles. Pick your battles.
Oh yeah,
and
here we go.
Abuse your voice recipients too, your phone call recipients.
Yeah, anybody looking to set up a soil sample pickup, I think we've talked about maybe putting a resource book together because, like I said, I think we don't have a single pickup that should have been probably set up as a soil sample pickup, but it's the ones we had, and it was the ones we have, so you just kind of go, okay, that one's next, put a probe in it, and it comes back, and you're just disgusted on how it's set up and how uncomfortable it is, but that's the way it is. I don't know if there's anybody actually seeking soil sample pickups, but I tell you what, there's definitely certain ones that are to be desired, and it's none that I have, that's for sure.
It's not the one I have either.
So check Ford and Dodge off the list, is what I'm hearing.
Mid-90s. Mid-90s.
I wonder if
Chevy.
anyone's ever taken a Toyota Tundra.
Ooh.
Those are still too nice used. No one would ever cut a hole in the floor of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're
So
just too
speaking of shitty probe placement and stuff, so I want to hear Jody's opinion. So you were running my other probe pickup, and that has an odd placement in a distance from the driver's seat. How was that to use? Because the channel iron faces in a non-traditional direction to my knowledge, anyways, and kind of sits like you kind of got to lean. You kind of have like a weird grab to it.
Yeah. So definitely by the time, I think the first day, we sampled from 9 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. I definitely could feel the muscles in my body that I was using to lean over. And then also like, I had a really hard time with like using my right hand afterwards because like you kind of really had to finagle to get to the bottom of the collar to get to the quick attach on the cylinder just because of like how that channel iron was facing. So the channel iron was facing like towards the front of the pickup instead of like facing me. So I didn't have complete access to the bottom of the cylinder. But like otherwise, the one nice thing I think about having the cylinder that far away, so like I think square in where the passenger seat was, you kind of had more room to I think position like buckets and things in between the seat and like the probe. But I will say, I think if I had to use that sample truck every day, Kyle, I would need a like monthly or weekly appointment with a chiropractor because
No, you wouldn't.
I apologize that you ran that for 2 days, but that is also the sole reason that I am taking that to a shop here probably tomorrow, and I've been telling them this for like months, but I'm going to finally do it. Be like, I'm probably going to have to pay you as much as I paid the last person to install the whole thing, but I need a new hole and a repositioned.
Yep.
Because otherwise, I'm not going to keep people hired for very long to help me when I give them they're going to have to go to the chiropractor after they feel sore from like holding their arm in this weird position. And
the good news is that first night, that next couple nights, the good news is we're staying at the Three Bloody Knife Riverside Inn. The pot smokers, the weed was blowing over. It probably loosened up your shoulders a little bit there, Jody. You guys are down on that end of the hotel.
We woke up one morning. It must have been the last morning or something like that. And I said to Jody, my butt cheek really hurts from leaning over that hole all day. And she said, me too.
And like, it really wasn't like, it wasn't that bad. Like really, the worst part I think is just
tell me how bad it was. I'm not going to be offended by it.
I think a person would get over like the leaning over, right? But the worst part is just like my knuckles, because like I kept punching my knuckles into the channel iron. Like that was the worst part. Like bending whatever, but like the knuckles was just the worst. But like otherwise, like what I love about your truck, Kyle, is so you have like a manufactured probe holder beside your cylinder, and then also bucket holders, and then also color organized buckets. And like we talked a lot about this as a group, that anything you can do in that process of soil sampling to just take your brain out of it or like take your mind out of it to avoid mistakes is so valuable out in the field. So like being able to take the probe really quickly out of the hole and then back into the little slot for it to put like the probe slot behind the probe. Awesome. Takes a couple seconds out of going between holes, and then just having those buckets there in place that don't bounce around while you're driving through rocky fields. Awesome. Really easy to keep straight, top and sub, and then the different zones. So like, it was great. And it had AC. It was awesome. Oh, and a magnetic cup holder on the cylinder. Oh, which, who started that? Cause like whoever started buying those from Harbor Freight, like those are genius.
Cody Wallstrom was the one that brought that one up. And so that was my welcome to Montana gift for all of you guys.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah,
And-
that's I've never seen such a I think it was Carrie Butke that was sharing the magnetic can koozie and how it could hold a can of beer in there. But you're like the magnets, you're like, you question how strong these were, and then you get this Harbor Freight one, and it's like you aren't moving it. I mean, you could probably put like a 5-pound dumbbell on that thing, and it's not going anywhere.
And
That's
then
good.
The forklift knob is what I call it. The quick turn
Suicide knob.
That's a game changer. Game changer. Thank you, Lane.
I can't believe
So
you.
between
That's a Lane
that
Bothwell
and
thing.
Okay.
magnetic
Just
cup
like
holders.
the magnetic can holder, I don't know how you guys were sampling without them. It's a must have.
It is very good.
Yep.
Yep. I have actually
Like,
went
just
bought another one for my other truck too because of that trip.
Yeah, because just paint the picture of the problem, right? Like you're driving the pickup and you keep going a little bit to the left of the spot you want to be on, and like you keep cranking it, and your arm's getting tired because you're not getting there fast enough. But if you have the suicide knob on there, you just whip her around and you're at the spot. It is awesome, and like you feel like you're playing a video game driving from point to point, and it adds like a +2 experience to soil sampling in the field.
Ooh.
It feels
Yeah.
like a video
I
game
like the
with the
rankings.
suicide knob driving 60 as well. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, my top speed out there in a field was 50. And that was when we did the rodeo.
I watched that all go down. Yeah, you and Lane were at least doing that.
Yeah.
So, we haven't talked a lot about what it's like out there in that area. So, and generally as you move west, let's just say from an east to west progression, you hear about a lot of field sizes, let's say, in like the central Minnesota or parts of Wisconsin, and you have a lot of small fragmented fields, right? You're kind of in the interface of like lakes country and rivers and woods and all that, and the fields get smaller, and then you kind of transition out of that as you move west, and you kind of get more into farm country, and then it's a lot of quarter sections or a lot of 80s and 40s, and then as you keep going west, things tend to get a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger. And now even out here, there were a couple fields that are like 30 or 40 acres, but considering that there were fields that were that size, the average field size, I think I had figured out, was like 310 acres or something like that. Mm-hmm. So the average field, averaging the smallest with the largest, is over 300 acres. And some of the biggest fields, like I think the official day one, when we got going, I sent Lane and Jason after it was just about 2 sections.
Yep.
In size, and it was split up into 2 different fields to kind of with the appropriate amount of zones and all that business to tackle it appropriately, but it'll be farmed as 2 sections, and that's how they farm it. And where they're able, there's quite a few fields that are just perfectly squared up sections that are out there, and you go and you look at that and you look at the zones and the amount of zones you pull for samples and the transition and all that, and you go, okay, the zones are right, all that feels right, but it's just you cannot soil sample a section anywhere close as fast as you can a quarter section. It's just the distance that you got. I mean, you get a few more probes or whatever just inherently when you have a field that big for your initial like zone sample size, but it's just the distance you travel. And so if you want to try to keep efficient with your time, yeah, you're like foot on the floor. Yes, you're hauling ass across fields, and Lane and Jason were really good at doing that.
What does work
try
though
to keep
with
up
that situation, although it is a long ways between points, the cores were unbelievable. I mean, the dirt out there The soil. The soil. It's a
Sorry.
super
Mom.
easy sampling. It's a super easy sampling soil. It comes out of the probe very well, and the fields are for the most part very smooth, being no-tilled for the most part. So you're able to pretty well travel pretty fast between point to point, and there wasn't a lot of hang-ups for the most part between probe and probe, but there were big fields.
Okay, stop. Everybody think of this. Think of the word you're going to describe that soil. Okay, you got 3 seconds, okay?
I got it.
Okay, Jody, what's the word that you describe it?
Gritty.
Gritty? Sarah?
Flowery.
Okay, Lane?
Baby powder.
Oh, that's good.
I was gonna say fluffy.
Fluffy?
Fluffy.
Baby powder is what my word was too. It was
So when Dr. Goose used to talk about, in Soils 210, how to describe soil texture, he used to describe clay as sticky, silt as floury, and sand as gritty. And so when you would feel it, that's what it would feel like. And so it's interesting because I've had a lot of people, even from my backyard here in Hillsborough, asking how the soil is different. Now, of course, I'm here on Fargo clay. And so, that clay just sticks together, right? And it comes out of that probe in perfect sticks. Perfect sticks that, honestly, I just got done soil sampling a field last week after getting back from Montana, and it came out in perfect chunks. But this stuff from Montana, it feels just like you took your baby powder container out, or the flour container out of your pantry. And imagine having flour come out of a half-inch, quarter-inch tube. It comes out and it just falls apart. So whereas over here, when we soil sample and we get the sample out of the probe, it comes out in chunks. Out there, it comes out and literally turns to a powder. So it's really hard. I've struggled with trying to figure out what that 0 to 6 inch depth was right away, because it's not like you could actually see it. Like, I'm used to having the core come out and then I can measure it. You can't do that out there because it just comes out and it turns into a powder blob.
And that's where the slotted probe is absolutely key out there.
Absolutely.
It is.
You guys were
And
right.
That's another thing that I loved about Kyle's pickup too, is that he had a whole stash of flathead screwdrivers that had perfect 6 inch lengths on them. So all you got to do is get to the top of the core, tip it up to the left, and then that 6 inch cuts and drops into the bucket. It was just perfect. And then as soon as I lost one, I just had another that I could grab. So it was awesome.
That was a Lane idea.
Yep.
I learned that from Lane, and it's not just any old 6 inch screwdriver. You can't just go buy a real thick, stemmed one. You have to find one thin enough that fits between the slotted probe, and so you can cut it. Yeah, that's an important part of that, and that was a little more difficult than I thought. And I had to pay more for a couple screwdrivers than I thought I'd have to pay just to get the right size. But you're like, you can't put a price on this.
Worth it.
That's the first thing.
You can't put a price on accuracy.
You cannot. No.
What I'm hearing is a full line of Agronomist Happy Hour branded soil sampling accessories. You've got the magnetic cup holder, you've got the suicide knob, you've got specialty flathead screwdrivers that can only fit in the slotted probe and cut 6 inches. There's a whole product line here.
It's the Lane Bothwell edition.
buckets.
That's what I'm going to call it. The Lane Bothwell edition.
You just came up
a
with it.
free
So it
book
has
of
to
cuss words that come with it too.
A free book of cuss words.
So when I first got out there, we went out on Monday morning, the three of us, because the gals weren't there yet, and I had to switch to a smaller hole. So Lane borrowed me a tip because that silt, it would not. I got down so far, and that was it. And that was the key. The probe tip was hot. Went to a smaller
when
hole.
it's dry. Yep. And that's why the dry tips exist.
Went to a smaller hole, and man, it sampled nice. And I'm not a slotted probe fan at all, but it works out there. It worked like a dream. So I brought it back, and I was like, oh, we'll try this here. That's a cuss fest. That's a profanity. It does not work when you got wet soil, and it just doesn't work. So I'm still using my wet tip. But out there, so you got to have a potpourri of tools with you if you're going to do different things in different places or different soils. And
I totally was not the believer in the slotted probe.
right,
these are the perpetually wet soil people telling us this. They're like, I don't believe in this. I don't believe in this.
Clays in general.
Yeah, clay in general is you want to have a solid probe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I agree. Yep.
I came out with my PVC pipe to dip my probe in WD-40, and I brought my extra large container of WD-40 all ready to rock, and made sure I had drought tips in my muck tip. No, what a waste.
Yeah.
Didn't need
Which,
it, did
by
you?
the way, I think I stole somebody's slotted probe. I've got a slotted probe in my pickup, and I didn't own one before I went out there and came back with me. So I own somebody a slotted probe.
Clearly.
I probably threw
And like
I probably threw it in there when I drove your pickup for those 2 fields. I know. Damn it. That's probably
Somebody
my big
borrowed
one.
one.
And like on tips though too, like it really, even if you're like in a place that is perpetually really dry or in a place that is perpetually wet, it doesn't hurt to just have a mix of those probes. Cause like thinking back to 2021, we had tons of questions at AgVice, like my soil is way too dry, it just falls out of the bottom of the probe. And sometimes us switching to a wet tip for whatever reason help the soil stay in the probe better. So like some days, just like how the soil is and the combination of moisture and air, like it just takes a different probe on or a tip on another day. Or it could take just going from heavy duty chromoly to like stainless steel. So like have a potpourri, even if it seems like it's dumb, like just have a potpourri because you've got no idea when it's going to come in handy.
So I've got a good answer. I don't know if we were talking about the difference between like why I have so many stainless versus like the chromoly. So especially if like you'd know what we're talking about if you get your probes from AgVice. So you've got 2 options of probes. You've got a stainless steel probe, and you can get that slotted or solid, and then you can get this hardened chromoly steel, and it comes in a slightly bigger diameter. And so the tips are a little different. They're a little bigger, and I will say those are way nicer on like your difficult zones, your hilltop zones, your rocky fields and all that, because they don't bend. Or the collar will bend. But the couple places like I lean to do like stainless more because the stainless has a narrower diameter, and just getting in there to cut the 0 to 6 and separate it, I always still got to like have my finger in there. Kind of like hold the subsoil as you're tipping the probe out, and that bigger diameter is there's like, I don't know if it's a burr or what it is, but you got to stick your finger farther in there, and you end up callousing or getting like splits in your cuticles and stuff like that more, and I just don't enjoy it as much. And then if you're using that probe because it might be the only thing you had in your pickup at the time, and you hit any clay soil, everything sticks to chromoly hardened steel. Everything.
And
it'll look like Lane Bothwell's peanut butter and jelly knife when he's like making sandwiches. Just gross is what it looks like. Because he doesn't freaking clean it off, and he just raw dogs it from the peanut butter into the jelly. And just like, I mean, I guess you don't got to share with anyone else. So
I tell you what,
it's
week
okay,
had to have been probably an all-time low for me for noon lunches. I was pretty disappointed in my performance for packing lunches that week. Oh man!
Other than the peanut butter and jelly slider was a big win.
Yes, that was
sounded like
I had no idea. Yes, a PB&J slider that hit different.
Blows my mind. You had no idea. Like
No.
the Cash Flies dollar buns. Oh, those things are great.
It just
How did that compare to the? Oh, go ahead.
no. Go for it, Jody. You probably have something to say.
How did it compare to the triple decker?
Oh, the triple decker. That was a nightmare. A total regret. Well, first of all, it was a day old, which you guys knew. The bread to jelly to peanut butter ratio was completely off, and then it sat in a Tupperware all day, and it was a complete letdown. I completely regretted eating it, but the sliders really made up for it, and I don't know. Don't do it.
A lot more bread in the ratio
Yeah,
with a
way
slider.
too much bread. I don't know. It just kind of goes, just like lunches. If you have a really lunch, you're going to do whatever you have to do to improve your lunch the next day. Same thing with probes. From what I found is even from zone to zone here in eastern South Dakota and the conditions that you have, whether it's wet or dry, and shout out to AgVise, they typically have something, whether it's a tip or the right probe, to make that experience way better. They really do. They have a lot of stuff to get the accuracy of taking your sample, not have it plug up, or actually getting a good accurate sample. You really do have to have an arsenal of probes and tips and different stuff. And same thing with lunches. Don't eat the same.
Well, the good news is for us is that we would come out to where Kyle was staying in his camper, which he drug out there, and we had a tremendous breakfast to start the day, which was usually, we had what?
Gotta
hash
start
browns,
the day off on a good foot.
Dang,
hash
it
browns
was
and eggs and
needed.
breakfast sausage and bacon and OJ and coffee. Well, everybody, I'm the only dumb that doesn't drink coffee apparently, so everybody needed their coffee or whatever they needed in the morning, and off we went, and you packed your lunch. And the other shout out would be to Justin Rizvi with Lalaman, because they dropped this
Can't
2
forget about
flats
him.
of 701 Toro.
That was
Which-
good beer.
That was
That's
great
really
beer, wasn't
good
it?
beer.
That is a
Yeah,
great working beer. They need to they need to start like advertising the working beer of North Dakota, I think.
Yeah.
They have an opportunity.
It was a limited edition 701 Toro. I added my Mexican Flair Toro, and it was Laughing Sun beer, and it's excellent. It's very good.
So,
Yeah, Mexican lager is a great change up
Yep.
when you're used to the custom labeling being like, here, you're going to get a traditional lager or you're going to get a golden ale, and you switch it up just enough where you're like, hey, that's different, but it's good, and it's pleasing for everyone, not just it's not like putting in your case of the Monday IPAs in there where only a certain palate will enjoy that case of beer.
That would
it's a good premium grain belt.
that was good too.
Grain belts aren't bad. They're a little sweet, but not bad.
Well, I think we had Busch Lights along. We had High Noons along. There was some Ultras. There was, you name it.
Double bum.
Oh, yeah. That was
Okay, well, yeah, we can't forget about an
The
important
star of the show.
part of this. So Lane's pickup. So imagine this convoy. So we can paint the picture all the way back to the beginning of the trip. And Lane and Jason show up at my place relatively at the same time on Sunday night, and we take off Monday morning. And first place we went was to my shop, and I hook up one pickup to the other. So I'm towing one pickup without a driver in it and bringing it out to Montana. So we had a pickup for Jody. And then behind me, these two guys are following, and you got, I think Jason is right behind me. going right behind, and then Lane was behind him, and Lane's got a kegerator hanging out the back of his pickup. And so I brought a camper out the day before, so we had kind of a base camp, and so we had a place with electric hookups. One of the farmers I work with, he was generous to say, hey, you can come stay out at my place. I have 50 amp hookups right next to one of my pivots. You can set up right here in the driveway. Awesome view overlooking, one of his fields. And yeah, and then we had the power to hook up, the camper to all power, and we hooked up a kegerator to that. And so we had from what, Eponymous Brewing, Lane?
Yep, Eponymous Brewing. I brought 2 kegs. Of course, the fan favorite Double Bum.
The infamous Double Bum.
Yes, not a working beer, but yeah. And then
you don't drink that during the day.
No,
you don't have that in between fields, because there won't be a next field after too many of those.
No, you wrap up. After some, but that's why I brought.
You're not going to get a job done there. No.
Couple of those, and you'll actually enjoy a triple decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
You won't even know what you ate.
My evening meal after a couple Double Bums, I'd have been just tickled with my meal, probably. Oh man!
So it's really funny because I've had a bunch of people like trying to figure out why I would drive across the state of North Dakota in my my Dodge pickup, fondly called the Blue Beacon. And so why I would do that just to go soil sampling. And I said, well, you kind of got to understand, it's kind of like deer camp, except it's for soil sampling. And I said, that was the whole point, is we just kind of get together and hang out. And then at the same time, we're soil sampling like as many fields as we possibly can. And it was soil sampling in a place I had never been. So I got to see soils that I had never seen before. And really handle them, because that's when you really get to know the landscape, right?
Mm-hmm.
After you're driving up and down and actually seeing how everything lays on the topography. And then when you handle the soils and you really get to feel it and see the color, how much organic matter is in there, just visually analyzing it, all that kind of stuff really helps you kind of get things figured out. And so when I explain this to people, they all kind of look at me and they're like, huh. And that's about all I get.
Yeah,
you won't get it unless
saying,
you're
because of the trip. They were saying, because of you.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of deer camp, we have not discussed the cosmetic upgrade that Sarah's vehicle went under.
That was a perfect lead.
Yes.
In Montana.
Great
Thank
segue.
you, Jody.
And I believe it's called the Blue Buck now.
Absolutely. I'm going to take Canva away from you, Jody.
Me and Lane had 2 fields. So Kyle's like the command center in this whole thing. And he's handing off, you got this field, here's this field. We punch it in on the field mapper. And so him and I, Lane had 2 fields, and he had a south field and I had a north field. And Lane, you can take it. You can take it from there.
Well, we had to switch pickups too, because
Oh yes, yep.
we had Travis, our programmer. This was actually really cool. So GK Technology launched a new app, GK Field Mapper. And so one of the things that we were doing on this trip was really everybody was using this app and really testing it out big time. We've got 5 pickups out there. We're all on Kyle's account. And we're bringing up the zones and we're soil sampling off of it. And it was working great. But it was really neat because the guy who actually wrote the app is in Wyoming. And it was actually closer for him to come and soil sample with us than it was for me to drive from Hillsboro. So he comes up and joins us. And he's just hanging out with all the different soil samplers, seeing how we all, all of us do soil sampling. So he's hanging out with Jody. He's riding around with Lane. And finally Travis is like, I want to ride with Sarah. I literally have got 1 seat in the Blue Beacon, Blue Buck, whatever. I literally have 1 seat, and it's the driver's seat. And so in order to make this work, Travis said, well, can't we just change pickups with Lane, and then there'll be 2 seats in there? And I said, okay, which is all fine and dandy until you get into somebody else's pickup, and then you realize their soil sampling operation is nothing like how you're pulling samples in yours. I felt like lost.
If you think when somebody gets in your vehicle, if you think when somebody gets in your normal daily driver vehicle and they move the seat either forward or backward like a half inch, and you can tell immediately, just imagine if you have a system down to a T to where it's like just memory, you can do it in your sleep. And then you completely change that 100%. It's a complete catastrophe, is what it is. Efficiency
disaster.
No.
Yeah.
Travis to this day must think that I know nothing about soil sampling because I got in and I'm like, where is this? Where is that? I'm trying to figure it all out. And Lane takes off on my pickup, and he's like, I don't even get air conditioning anymore. And I'm like, oh, trust me, there's more to this pickup than that.
Yeah, I was over the air conditioning real quick when I found a gold mine at that field. I know that.
What was the gold mine? You could take the story from there.
So we switched
you
pickups.
might as well continue.
I'm in Sarah's pickup, and me and Jason go to our respective fields, and I have been to these fields before last year, actually, and Kyle said that. So I was like, okay, I think I understand this. And I was like, I'm pretty sure last year we had to go through this gate. And I said, you can go down this trail, take a left, you're in your field. Well, I'm out opening my gate, and I drop the post on this deer skull. And I was just like, I was like, even if I didn't get that field sampled, I had a good day. I was like, I nailed it. So I picked up this deer skull, and of course I had to go find some barbed wire somewhere, and I clipped some barbed wire. And let's just say I put on probably one of the best additions, better than the Rubbermaid container to the Blue Beacon. There's no doubt about that.
So I get back, and Lane's sitting there. And he's just like the cat that ate the canary, kind of a thing. And I'm like, he goes, you should go check the front of the truck. I said, did you put it? Because he's always giving Sarah a bad time. He's going to put some South Dakota State Jacks, decals or coloring on there, because it's kind of got that South Dakota State blue color to it. I said, did you put a sticker on that? Nope. Did you put a stripe? Did you do something on the front? Nope. Just go look. And I walk around the corner, and I my pants. And I'm like, where the hell did you find this? And he's laughing. Oh my gosh. So we head back, and we got a couple more fields to do, and it's getting dark now, right?
Yeah.
So we end up getting done, and we park kind of down. Sarah's out in the field doing it, and we park kind of where over, and we hope she saw us. And then Jody and Kyle come, and they pull in where Sarah's at. And I'm like, well, we better go up there. So we pull in, and she doesn't know this is on the truck, right? So, of course, she parks with the lights on in Lane's truck, and Lane drives up in her truck and puts it right in the headlights. And she comes walking out, and I'm sitting in my truck just watching this whole thing happen, and she's just like, what is going on here? And then it was so funny. And then that was a late night, right? We didn't end up at Lindsay at the bar. That was kind of the goal, was to get to that little small town.
We got work done that night, though.
All I know is we pounded her up. If you drive a Dodge pickup and you think you're going to grab life by the horns, now I really can.
You really need to know.
And let me paint it let's paint a picture of this deer skull. Like, it's not just like a weathered old deer skull. Like, there is fur that is still matted to this thing. Like, this is a rough looking skull. It's a true treasure.
You know what's really funny about the whole thing is, right? So I live in town in Hillsboro, and it's just really handy during soil sampling season to have my sampling pickup right here. So, like, if I get a chance, I can just like run out and go and soil sample. I've had a couple of neighbors ask about what is on the front Dodge pickup now. And I kind of feel bad because we definitely have maybe some retired folks in my neighborhood.
You live in a nice neighborhood. Let's just say that.
And they're kind of like, so what's on the front of your pickup? And I'm like, oh, never mind.
Long story.
Yep.
You might not find as humorous as I do.
And our one rule is that when we go back out to Glendive, because we had such a great time, it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the field mapper, right? So there's multiple trucks running this, and I came up with the logo. I think the slogan. It's so easy that even Jason Hanson can use it correctly, right? So that should tell everybody who's listening that, well, what is this? And I'm going to tell you right now, it is kick ass. It is awesome. So we had 5 of us out there, and Kyle was kind of dictating, giving us, this field's yours, that field's yours, this is a 4-zone, this is a 3-zone, whatever. And you just go through and punch this stuff in, and boom, you would go. So it was great to have the people who are promoting it and the person who designed it to actually use it. So there was like legitimate. I mean, we're getting some stuff done out there as well, besides the goofing off, which was the fun part. But yeah, I love it. So I've come back now and I started doing some stuff on my Surface Pro. And yes, Kyle, I should just yeet them right out the window.
Yes, you should yeet. I can't believe you're putting up with the Surface Pro and you haven't made, just told Leah, figure out whatever we need to do to get an iPad with cellular service in it.
Yeah.
Because it's that much nicer.
It is.
And actually, that app is so cool because, so I obviously got multiple screens on my computer here and I've got ADMS open on the other side. And I actually just opened up a field that Sarah sampled, and boom, there's all of her all of her sample points right there.
Get all the sample points back from all of us?
Yeah. Yep.
So they all came into your computer and they're all there.
They're all there.
Which is really cool because, in some of those fields that you guys sampled last year, there were points on some of them, but not all of them.
Yep.
And
so that was when Lane and I did stuff together. My points came across, but some reason his weren't logging everything.
And that's one of the things. That's what I noticed about sampling for you, Kyle, is I was so much faster in the fields that there was points already there versus when I had to make the decision
when you have points
and count. Yep. Yes, absolutely. And backing up a step too. So what GK Field Mapper is it is a GIS app for your phone. And in this instance, so GK Technology, right? We are an ag software company. And so this is our entry into the app space. So Android users, iOS users, this is something that you can download. And you don't have to be an ADMS user to use it. You can be someone that has never heard of ADMS before, which is basically our it's a whole panacea of things that it can do. But for most of you that are listening, you'll probably think about it as being a zone making software. But GK Field Mapper, what's great about it is you can load your zone maps into the app, you can load your sample points into the app, and then you can go out and either you can download them before you go out, have them on your phone, or load them into your phone before you go and have them when you're out there in the field. And then when you're actually out in the field, you can very easily mark the points and then get those points back when you're back at the office. And the thing that makes it super fast is the fact that it connects to the GK cloud. So if you are an ADMS user and you're somebody that makes zone maps and then goes out to the field to collect those samples for those zone maps, you can push them up from ADMS and then you can have them in your phone as soon as you've got cell phone signal or on your iPad, whatever you're using to soil sample. So it's super quick that way. And we've had it out for, a month now? We've learned some things about it and we've got improvements on the way too, but it's been great. And we've talked a lot about, different things that we do, each of us, to make soil sampling easier and faster and more mistake proof. And this is a big improvement. And folks, go look for it in the App Store, look for it in the Android store, give it a try.
100% worth what the app costs.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Which actually doesn't cost any different than any other app you pay for.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And to be clear on pricing, it is free. You can download it. You have to have you have to sign in with your name and your password, but you do not have to buy a subscription to the GK Cloud. You can just use it. But having that subscription, there's different rates and different memories you can pay for that, but that'll give you access to that cloud feature where you can push data back and forth.
gotta say one thing because I'm probably gonna have to. I wish the mapper could keep my ThinkPad battery charged on my freaking computer. So I'm probably gonna have to jump here and do a little recharge. But the maps that we had to deal with were so awesome. That was one thing. Like I missed out on probably one of the best pictures of a zone that I've seen in a long time. And that was the one day you and I, Sarah, we were on a section doing it, right? And I graciously took the red zones because I had the red truck, right? And I'm in a red zone. And when I drive into the spot, imagine a section of land and there is this little red circle. And when I drove into that circle, I was sitting in the middle of a green kochia patch, the exact size that was on that map. Now, this map, I assume, Kyle, was probably made in January or February. And here we are at the end of August, and it's perfect.
It was so much fun being out there to see that. To see how when zones are set up the way that they are supposed to be set up, and you drive in to the different zones, they just make sense. You can tell by where you are sitting in the field on the landscape. You can tell by the different colors of soil that you pull up. It's amazing.
Yeah. So that was something that it's the person that's putting the designing it together, putting the stuff together. But that was really fun to get into some really big pieces.
And when you got a program that's like you guys have, it makes it easy when you want to do something.
So to that point, though, I want to ask a question because Kyle, you made all the zones that we pulled out in Montana. So you made those zones yourself. And I know, Lane, you have Kurt make a lot of zones down your neck of the woods, right?
Yeah, Kurt's my guy.
So when you drive into zones, I mean, do you see that thing too? Like when it works?
Yeah, so that's a very typical thing for us where Kurt, of course, will be in the office. He'll go through a lot of imagery. He'll put a map together and he'll spit it out and he goes, okay, here's the map. Go sample it. It's not just go sample it. It's go verify that map. And with, the program that you guys got, it just makes it, first of all, extremely easy to make a map from the office. And then it just makes it extremely easy for me when I'm out there taking the cores to verify that, these zones make sense. Or it's, hey, maybe some changes can be made to either this zone or this zone should be now turned into a blue zone because it's wet. Granted, it's still low yielding. It's still a different zone. So the app is extremely easy to use. It's makes us very efficient. It's very versatile. It makes us to have a lot less equipment, and it just makes the overall experience for me and Kurt as a team to try and get this done accurately extremely easy and done very well.
It is pretty neat though to have really awesome zones. Like I've noticed that too when I've soil sampled around here too. When I make zones, you drive into places and it makes sense when you drive into that red zone. You're in the place where you're supposed to be. Okay, maybe you might come across a place where you're like, I should mod this out. It's still a low production area, but it's low producing for a different reason. So I'm going to mod this out. But for the most part, when you drive into a zone, it just makes sense because of the way the zones are set up. And then when you have
those are the things that we can do with the app as well, where
I was just going to say that's
very easy, quick changes with the options that you guys have that go right back up to the cloud that Kurt can see basically in real time. As I'm out in the field making the changes to the map he made,
That's probably why I like the app the most.
Yeah.
Right now is, sure, it's super simple. Like I can sit on my desktop right now and it just takes 2 right clicks, save to GK Cloud, and then boom, it's in the app, and I'm ready to sample. Like, to me, that's way less steps than what it used to be when I would have to be just hooking in a thumb drive, transferring files onto a thumb drive, and then bringing a thumb drive to a different Surface Pro computer, and then transferring it again, and hoping that my Surface Pro that's been riding around is getting rattled to death and getting full of dust, that it's going to survive enough to transfer files. So one part, just like the app being seamless like that, just where you're like right click, save to cloud, doom, done. And it's great, but like the quick marks thing is like such an upgrade too. So that's, I keep different buttons on mine now. So I'll have like, like an anomaly, like if something's really weird, I'll have, here's my normal point. And then here's like a mod area point, because I totally have fields, and I've been doing this now, like around like this stuff out in Montana. It's like, I like it so much out there, because like you guys said, like the zones just match. It's really cut and dry. There's not a whole lot of weird delineation that happens out there. Like, great example of where I was today. There's 2 very different poor productivity areas. One that's like straight heavy clay and very salty and a lot of salinity. And then there's more of like topography related sand. And so it was super easy to go in there, and they show up on the map the same color because they're both poor productivity. But if you start mixing all that together, you don't really get a true representation of what that field should look like. Because if you're starting to pull in like these clays that are high in salts, well, it's also probably really high in like potassium, and it's high in some other things too, where when you're pulling like sand ridges and stuff like that, that's going to be really low in potassium. That's going to be really low in organic matter, and it's going to not be good. And those really heavy salt areas are going to be super high in nitrates. They're going to be super high in potassium. They're going to be potentially higher organic matter. And now there's just an easy way to be like
completely different.
Yeah. And now, like, the way I do my sampling, I've got barcoded labels already printed out on bags. I'm set to go the way I am. I carry extra bags, but like, unless you have a good way to mark where you've been differently, why save another sample? Because it would be more hassle. And so now it's like, oh, hey, I hit a clay knob. Okay. Different bucket, different mark. And you just start to mark them differently. And then it's so much easier to just separate out your different low productivity, because some low productivity areas you can't do anything to fix, and some you can. Right. And so to separate out those things is great.
That's exactly what I do. It's exactly what I do when I'm given a map. I give different marks for different productive areas. And it used to be I wrote this down prior to, like, this area, northwest corner, that should be, it's still a low productive area, but it is not a red, it's a blue zone. And I had to have to write this stuff down. Now with this app, it's literally like 3 clicks, boom, different mark. I sample the zones completely differently. The marks are separated by color. They're easily identifiable. Kurt makes the changes. Done.
Yeah, because when you get done sampling, like if you have those marks set up so that you are sampling like an area that needs to be changed to a mod area or something like that, if you just make a quick mark for a mod area, that those sample points go directly back to Kurt or like Kyle. When you get back in sampling, they'll be there at your computer like right now.
You're not writing notes down that you hope you can find that you used a marker that barely worked on a sample bag that you probably lost anyway. That was my system. Now it's just like bing, bing, bing. Kurt gets the information right away. He makes the changes. We get the sample bags made correctly. It's just so smooth.
So like to illustrate what this means like in the app and like to kind of put a picture of like what we're talking about and having like these quick marks, you can set up. So for example, all of us that were running the app out in Montana, that's 5 different samplers. And so what Kyle had done is he had made these template quick marks in the Field Mapper app, which you can do for points, lines, polygons, continuous points. Each of us had our own quick mark. And so if we're out in a field, mine would be GK Jody. And so Kyle can see every single quick mark that I made for sampling points out there. Lane's got a different one. But like you can do multiples of these in the field. So like if 2 of us were sampling the same field, there'd be 2 sets of quick marks in that field and then come back into ADMS as different layers. And so same thing with like your mod area points, your abnormal soil sample points. Those would be the different layer of points that would then come back to ADMS and you can view them as separate as the other points. So there's flexibility in how you can collect data out in the field using the GK Field Mapper app.
To me, that was the big deal. That was
even made a boundary for Kyle. I got into a field and a portion.
Oh gosh, now I got to go look at that one.
It was like kind of cut up. And
I know exactly the field.
It was 2 different crops. So when I got into it,
yeah,
I was like, I don't know. I think this is probably something Kyle wants to know. So I just made a boundary of
there it is.
Exactly sure what I did, but I made a boundary. This was wheat. This was whatever the other crop was, and maybe that needs to be fertilized differently. And it just showed up right as cloud. I didn't have to transfer a thumb drive like we used to do or anything like that. It was extremely easy.
Or I'll text you a screenshot of the line I drew on a satellite map in the field where I thought this boundary was, and then you can figure out how to bring that boundary into ADMS later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it takes a lot of that guesswork out and a lot of like the hassle of moving data back and forth.
And
yeah, that boundary you drew, it showed up in there just perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just went and loaded your points and that boundary for that particular field you're talking about, and yeah,
and maybe this is just me, but one of my favorite features in the app is that you can get directions to a shapefile. So like if you've got a boundary or sample points that are in there and you ask the app to give you directions to get there, it's really handy. So if you don't know where you're going, you can like kind of figure out where you are going. I'm kind of always the person just following everybody else on these sorts of deals, so it was kind of nice to have an idea.
No, so that navigate to options pretty nice, especially when you're helping someone else out in an area where you don't know where they're going. So that part's especially nice.
There's hills out there, like high hills. We don't have that in the Red River Valley. I can always see where I want to go here, and everything is completely square. There's like hills and stuff like that out there. It's very confusing.
Yeah, I don't know how to call the hills. Like they've got hills, but it's like a lot of gentle sloping stuff, and
they're big.
I'm like, I really need to take you around to some of the hills that I have around here, because your pickup's going to need to be in 4-wheel drive to climb the slope to get, like it might not be these like huge fields and gentle slopes like they have there. It'll be all of a sudden you're like, whoa, how am I driving up to get to that zone? Like, I'm going to have to, I just can't like drive straight up this hill. Like, I'm going to have to like make an approach on it and come at an angle.
Parking brake to stay in the right spot so I don't like roll out of the zone once I get up there.
Once you find this spot, it shouldn't be so bad. Although today there were a couple spots, the slope I was on, I'm like, there's a trick to sampling on a slope, because your quick attach collar wants to like kind of hang to level.
Yes.
And you do not want to, and when, so when you're in an angle, you don't want that probe to push, at the angle it's going to push, and then the probe's hanging level, and then that's where shit bends. You don't want that stuff to happen. So that's where the 6-inch screwdriver comes in real handy, because like you can push the probe to the angle of the way the cylinder is going to push it, and then it goes straight into the ground, perpendicular into the ground. I had to do that a few times today, so I didn't bend my probe.
So when I came back to the Red River Valley and I sampled my one field about 4 miles away from the Red River, all one soil type, Fargo clay, completely flat. I just like hurried up and put my pickup into neutral, and I didn't have to worry about rolling in neutral. And then I ran my probe, and it went straight down and came back up again. It was amazing.
No. Park and brake. Important features.
Yes.
It was so
Oh my
weird
gosh.
for me getting used to putting my pickup in park out there. That was so weird.
Well, the Montana experience it's quite amazing when you get a group of people who are experienced in pulling cores. The amount of work you can actually accomplish, with the equipment we had, the app, all the experience that we had there, and of course all the pickups and all the equipment, and then just the amount of just shenanigans you can have put on top of it. It's an experience that,
so
there's something about having a lot of fun and getting a lot of shit done at the same time. That doesn't happen a lot. So that's the Montana experience that I know, where you show up, you get a lot of good work done that's quality, and then the amount of fun that you get to have kind of afterwards or even during. That's the Montana sampling experience.
The analogy Sarah used earlier, I think, is a great way to describe it. So it's like deer camp. So
Yep.
it's not, so you get a bunch of people that go to a hunting camp. It's not like they're all together all the time when they're doing that. Like if you're going to go on some deer hunt, you're sitting by yourself all day, in some deer blind or a stand or something like that. But then you're meeting up maybe mid-morning, or some people sit out all day, but you're getting back for mid-morning for lunch, or you get supper later, and you're hanging out with everyone after the fact. You're talking about your day and how everything went. Well, it's really no different, but in a working capacity.
Yeah.
On what we did there, because we're all kind of working independently. And you're like, oh, yeah, that one field, Kyle. Oh man, you shouldn't be sampling the red and the orange zones on this. Matter of fact, you shouldn't even be sampling the yellow zones. You should just be focusing on the high productivity area, because all you're doing is everything in your equipment list when you're in these rocky, absolutely horrid garbage ground areas. And Jody has learned too. Yeah, she.
There you go.
You can see this, but I'm holding a stainless steel slotted probe in the shape of a J. That.
Stainless steel one. That is something
Yeah.
I'm proud of. That's amazing.
I'm sorry, Kyle.
A wall hang.
Hey, it's a badge of honor, is what it is. It's a badge of honor to have that. It is just how it goes. But that was
stay out of the red zones on that field.
so.
Please.
There's a field that we wouldn't have done this year because that field went to pulse crops for next year. But it would be one that would be experienced the following year in the mod zone, or having the different quick marks feature is definitely something that I would probably use on the field, just to mark out the different soil types. And so out there, like everyone described, or when Jason was asking, like, how do you describe this soil? And you're like flour or baby powder or fluffy, or, whatever you want to say. Well, there's another soil type out there that's like rock and gravel.
River
and
rock.
Just at river rock. Yeah. It's beat the hell out of any equipment you're trying to shove down there. And there's one field that was actually like on the main highway we came in, would have been on the east side of that highway. And I remember and it was a field I did. And remember going across it, like every hilltop you go across, you're like, oh God, this is never going to work. You look down on the ground and it's just all river rock. You're like, I'm not even going to try to stick this. Like, there's no point. And then you drive to the next hilltop and it's like baby powder, just like the real flowery type soil. And you'd go, and then every other hilltop was like different. And I'm like, this is unique. Like, how is this one so nice and this one so full of rock? And so that's something I wish I had when I went through there. And matter of fact, I could identify what hilltops had rock on it because I did proceed to drive to every hilltop in that field to get the red zones. And the only ones I actually collected were the flowery soil types and not the river rock ones. So I kind of, in a way, already have that data or have it separated, but it's just, again, another thing you could do with that app, just separate out these things and go.
What was the final, do you have stats on how many fields were sampled during that week and then how many acres that was?
I can give you some rough guesstimates. So, let's say the way this worked out, there were 60, I think it was 68 fields in total. But there's 64 fields that were zones. So there were 64 zone fields that were taken that week. And I would say on average, we were pulling 3.5 zones a field when you figure it out. So now you're talking 224 different soil samples, but at 2 different depths. So approximately 450 bags of soil that were collected for the job that were there. Now, acres wise, I never did check, but just between the couple of farms there, I know roughly it's like right around that 20,000 acre kind of mark there is the amount of acres that represents. But between the 2 different farm operations, that just on what we soil sampled, we
didn't soil sample their whole farms by
no anything that would have went to a pulse crop. They have a pretty standard approach to it, and so they just flat rate as much phosphate as they dare, with in a starter package or whatever, or one of them mid rows, I think. But
how many beers
they just put down. No, there's a stat that maybe Jason kept track of.
Did you keep marks of beers or?
Well, my truck was fairly consistent. So I will say this. First day I picked up a 6 off the flat, right? So Lane's all about the ice. And the ice at the Three Bloody Knives Riverside Inn is they got this.
I waged there.
Yes, they got this huge scoop bucket. And Lane's I think he was going to throw his back out for how much ice he was going to bring in that cooler. So he brought that along and I got some ice and a 6 was about good for the day. Well, then when Travis was along, yeah, he's a programmer, but that boy can drink beer. I mean, I brought a 12 along that day and that was not enough. That was not enough. So we blew through those 2 cases on the flats, and then we did go out one night to the bar. It was Thursday. That was the Bison Colorado game. We went to that, and we put it. I think we put a fairly decent dent in your double bum keg.
We did.
But I don't know how we did it.
It's going to run out here anytime. Yeah.
Yeah, that was mostly Kyle and Jody, I think. Yeah. But
clearly.
My favorite was probably having to load it up in the back of of course the farmer that we were working for was awesome, and
yes,
having to load that in the back of his side by side to plug into the side of his house so he could grill us, some food that evening. That was probably a highlight of drinking beers.
That was so funny. He's like, I was hauling hay all day and I just did not have time to stop and pick up beer. We're like, don't worry.
We're good. Covered. Yeah, we're doing. Well, we got you covered.
They also have a cat that can do somersaults. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
That was my highlight. Not beer related. I'm very sorry. but Miss Kitty can do somersaults.
Yeah, it's always a plus when you're working for growers that really care. You know, that they're really into what you're doing. They believe in the system. You know, that makes the work all that much better to do. I mean,
It was
the compliments that he was given, you know, not just to Kyle but to everybody. This guy was a standout farmer, and that makes the job all that much better.
It does make it a lot of fun.
It was just fun to go meet him, meet his wife, see their place, see their operation. I got like the really cushy composite sample. I was right across from where we camped, or the camper was. So it's on the pivot. And he drove
get like the perfect one, just small enough, right next to the camper.
Yep.
Just hammer it out quick and be done.
That was kickoff for that game. So I'm listening to the game, and he drives up, and he's like, I'm kind of curious as to what is going on. You know, what are you doing? So I was just showing him. Even on the composite, I was dropping pins, and I said, "This is great. Kyle just gives us the stuff. We get the field. Here's our cursor for the truck. We go to it, and we drop pins, and these show up. And so next time we come back, we'll sample." He's like, "Really?" Yeah. So then it was like, he was all excited because this wasn't like, you know, an Abbott Costello type routine, peanut butter and jelly type crew here. I mean, it was pretty
Windbang crew.
pretty professional, actually.
That's the A-team, man. It's happening.
Yeah, that's right.
professional. What we're trying to figure out, but we're professionals.
Hey, I tell you what, I had more fun making memes and things like that over things that had happened over the last couple of days. I'm actually going to drop that on.
Gopher was my.
You're very good at
favorite
it too.
when
Yes.
somebody else.
Yeah, when
That's
someone
good.
else, and it was mentioned, when someone else gets in your truck and they've moved your shit in your soil sampling truck, you've lost your space, your mind. You don't know where you're at in the soil
Or the
sample
decoration
sphere.
in front of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I do not use TikTok much. Like, I do not have a personal account, but you should all follow Rock and Roll Agronomy on TikTok if you don't already. Jason is gold.
I don't need that pressure.
Don't need that pressure.
But like we said before, I think we even started podcasting. Content creation is a lot of work. If you want to, depending on what you want to do, it's entertainment, it can be just whatever. But if you're actually trying to get a point across on things, you got to put some thought into it, and it's tougher and it takes time. So I don't know. And there's a lot of other stuff too that we did. I'm really curious because we probably mentioned, I don't know if you guys had to go charge my computer, so I was like off for 10, 15 minutes or whatever. But we had a chance to do what we call a rodeo. And that is, we got everybody on the same field and everybody got a color. And then Kyle basically blew the horn and we all took off. And it was just chaos. And it was so much fun because everybody's competitive and you want to get done first. And there was a couple things in there. And that was
scores.
Yes, you want to do a good
But
job.
do it effectively,
You gotta
yes.
cover your zone.
Yep. And Leadfoot Lane over there, you gotta watch him because if you're gonna try to keep up with him, holy buckets, there you're gonna get some airtime when you're making some jumps and all that. And then that was the spot where we came in and we decided, and at some other podcast we'll probably have the song that's gonna come out, right? And this is for you, Sarah. About
I know that's why the look on her face is like, yeah, what's going on here?
I'm not going to divulge it here. We'll wait. I gotta work on it a little bit, but we like to give each other a hard time when we're out there too because it's part of the fun.
Let's just say we all like to give each other a hard time. They all like to really pick on me. Because that's what
Actually, that's very true. Yes,
It is. It's a little bit true. Yeah.
it's a little bit true. Because I'm trying to drive across the state of North Dakota on the Friday before Labor Day weekend and not get caught by Smoky Bears with the stupid deer skull hanging off my license plate.
Well, it was the only Dodge out there, so it's pretty easy to get picked on.
Yeah.
And that rodeo field, though, that was a 2-mile long field.
It
So
was
like
fun.
without a lead foot, you don't get that done.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so much fun.
It was good.
So we'll have some drone footage. Kyle
Yeah,
flew
I'll
the
have
drone.
to get that uploaded so you can access it, Jody. I've got your link. I've got a drone sitting next to my desk now. I just got to actually spend time in here where I can go upload it.
Was it anything like me where like I started to look at the GoPro footage and then realized that the 20-minute soil sampling video that I took out the front of my windshield was like 11 gigs?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I haven't looked to see how big some of these files are, but yes.
It was
And-
so much fun. That was such
Yeah.
a great trip because it's we sound like goofballs, but we're pretty serious about what we do, and to go out there and experience a different area, somebody we didn't really know, to work 5 trucks at one point together, 6 people, 5 trucks. The field mapper worked outstanding,
Mm-hmm.
and so everything's kind of like clicking along, and that was probably the funnest part of it.
And just to be able to soil sample with people that do this job from so many different areas. I mean, you think about all the geographies that we come in from. So to have all those different places coming in and just really seeing farming in a different place, it was really fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, anybody that spends a lot of time soil sampling, we all know that it gets long. You know, you got your good days and your bad days, but it really goes to show that there's actually a group of people. You're not alone. You're not the only person out there having a really day trying to pull cores. That there is a fun group of people out there actually getting a lot done and having a lot of fun doing it. You know, you really find a group of people that you have a lot of common with and actually like to, you know, maybe hang out with and have a beer with and have a lot of common with.
The funnest comment I got was somebody had said, or they got a comment because we were posting content. Every day we'd go out, I'd take stuff and then I'd put it together and whatever. And somebody had said to someone else that got to us was like, "Great, these guys are making it look like it's the funnest on the whole planet." And now my farmers think that I'm going to want to do this. And I'm like, oh, mission accomplished.
Yes.
That was, it came across exactly how it was for us.
It was. It was
right.
an awesome experience.
Yeah.
And to me, this is, you know, yes, there's like a job at hand that you got to get it done and all that, but it's also a time of year where it's like a little more relaxed and it feels less high stakes because like we all know like, and I think that's why we all enjoy this part so much is like, oh, this is the fun part. It's the actual soil collection. And then it like starts the whole thing that goes for the rest of the year. And it's going like, okay, then it's fertility planning. Then it's compiling all that information, putting it together, go, here's what I think the fertility plan should be. Do you think this is what the fertility plan should be? And then you get like a nod or a, no, I want to change some stuff here. And then you start to put together the fertility plan. And then you're like, okay, this is how much NPK you're going to need. And they go and do their purchasing. Then it gets quiet for a little bit. And then it gets hectic again, you know, come spring when it's like, okay, this is all got to come together. Here are the maps. You know, and try to make it all talk and come together and make the prescription come out right and all that. Yeah. So it's, to me, like the fall is the fun time. And I think that's why we all enjoy the same sentiment because you're like, yeah, this is like, yeah, you got to get the job done, but it's definitely a more like no fire under your kind of time, you know?
I agree.
to have all the turn and burn that goes with the rest of it.
Yep.
I think it's really important to remember too, just in case anybody's out there that hasn't pulled a soil sample ever in their life, when you see the agronomist happy hour t-shirt that says, if you ain't swearing, you ain't soil sampling, there is validity to that. So just keep in mind.
Almost every day you soil sample, there's a few cuss words. Yeah.
Yes. Even in Montana.
It don't matter where you are.
Yeah,
It
agree.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I had a great day of cussing. I mean, sampling today.
I want to say a Winnebago Man quote, but I don't want to get you guys censored or whatever.
Oh, we already put explicit. You go for it.
Oh, good. If someone says one more time. My mom listens to this.
Well, now we know if she's going to actually listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because we're like an hour and 40 minutes into this now.
Yeah.
So,
It'd be a great test. Perfect.
yep, this will be a great test to see how long your mom actually listens to this podcast and if she's really paying attention when you get to this point. But,
great.
but with that,
Great,
I think
great.
that's a great kind of segue to say, we can kind of wrap this one up. But I mean, like, I can't thank this group enough for the help, you guys coming together and getting this all done together like we have. But then the camaraderie and having the fun we did doing this. I mean, like you said, it's like a hunting camp. It's like you got stories, you're sharing about it, you're thinking about the next time. You go do it and you can get together. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I do appreciate, I don't mind the work, but the work goes really quick if you're with people that also enjoy what you do. And afterwards there was so many things I picked up and got and pulled out of that whole experience too, whether it was piece of equipment or advice or stories or whatever. So it was great. I'm ready to go back again.
There's Christmas presents that I'm getting for all of you.
I got back and it was
because
so boring.
I have mild OCD and there's like some things that drive me.
I was sitting. I'm like, I'm the only one sampling today. This sucks. I don't have any working beers, and there's no peanut butter and jelly stories, and there's nobody that called the black pearl the black squirrel.
Oh, yes.
Someone is really bad of hearing, and that's me. Sorry.
With those special
squirrel?
noise canceling headphones, I wonder how good you could hear.
Yeah.
Not at all. Wait, Kyle, you said Christmas presents. That's chiropractic appointments for a month?
I'd have to work on that too.
Well, thank you to GK.
Like color coded buckets.
Yep.
Or
I would agree.
Important
Yeah.
things that just.
But
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you guys so much for having us out there and for hosting Kyle and for being a fantastic host. And even though you made us work, like, it was really fun. And thank you so much for letting us test our new app and experience Eastern Montana. It's a blast.
I'm ready. Ready to do it again. I'd go anywhere again with this group and anybody else that would want to do it, to go help somebody or just pull into an area and do it, because you don't realize how fun it is until you actually
Can
do it.
attest how much fun it is to just like go do it with someone else too. You know?
That's you, Phil Warner. Phil Warner, we're talking to you.
He knows.
I know.
We've had the conversation. He knows.
Lane has planted the seed.
I couldn't agree more.
Oh
I'm glad I
man,
made it again.
that 7.3
I'm glad
diesel
we
really
started
has
it,
a
Kyle.
fit. Yep.
I'm glad it.
Yeah.
I'm glad it started. Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know if it would become.
It takes
What
two
it
of us to
has.
make this whole thing
Yeah.
happen. Yeah, you're just talking about a daydream, and I'm like, let's make it a reality.
Yeah, it was right up my alley. So it was exactly what I was looking for, and then it just got better. So
Discovery Channel, if you're looking for a show to host or like a special.
Oh,
can-
I'm telling you, we could
Yes.
we could play this off like a gold rush. We could have multiple seasons like, oh, the Mafia has returned to Montana. And this time there's new players in the game.
Then
Yeah.
like comes in on your territory. Just kidding. No shade to anybody. A new crop consultant comes in on your territory. They're
Yeah.
trying to take acres away from you.
Yeah.
Somebody slashes your
it's so good.
tires. Can't go in soil
Oh.
sample.
Oh, there could be so much just fake drama. painted into the whole thing. I love it. So there we go. We're going to spin this off to the Discovery Channel, or we'll find some other just like total like low key streaming service.
If Discovery Channel is coming out to hang out with us, they got to stay at the same motel that we stay at.
Yes.
You will not understand.
That's obviously at the Three Bloody Knives is where they're going to have like the spot that they can interview you and you can talk about your day.
Hey, but we saw at least a 4 bloody knife spot on our way to the beer jug.
Oh, out to eat, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's like, okay, an extra bloody knife rating, or it's pretty convenient to be right at that spot and just head out.
It is. It's
so,
I don't know if I could stay at the other one.
that one was pretty sketchy.
It'll probably be burned up before next year.
Oh,
You know, no
jokes,
choice.
but
But I'm kind of serious because there's another hotel that burned up like last year. Not too many blocks away from there. So
Well, as long as it doesn't take the blue beacon, we need that grill.
Yeah.
you're right. Keep that blue beacon or the blue buck in tip top shape.
Yeah.
And everyone else listening, we hope that you find this little reignited spark for soil sampling for as much as we enjoy it. Nico, have fun out there, and I highly encourage you to do it with friends because then you're going to have that much more fun again. And as always, just thanks for listening all the way to the end. Thank all of you guys for just coming and talking about the previous week and the fun we had, the work we got done, and why we enjoyed so much. Hopefully that translates out to everyone that listens. And we'll catch you guys the next time on not just the Agronomist Happy Hour, but however you guys use Geek Speak.
You're
going to have a marathon episode for this one.
Geek Speak, is that okay?
Yeah, we got
Say what?
6
Can we do
episodes
our
here.
traditional sign off from Geek
Let's do your traditional sign off.
At GK Technology, we have a map
yeah, for that.
Oh, and there you go. We'll see y'all.
Cheers.
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 No, I can't wait to get in the fields again.
Let the geeks at GK Technology help you with your agricultural data. Their agronomists know agriculture. When it comes to creating soils and zone maps to maximize yields in your fields, you can trust the people with decades of experience in site-specific agriculture. Everyone at GK Technology has a background in agriculture, so they know what makes a farm run, and they speak your language. The geeks at GK Technology have a map and an app for that.